So Callum, what did we do last week?
Last week, we filmed 24 pieces of content for a client in our studio across 2.5 days. And to break it down, that was 8 long form videos and 16 short form videos, plus a whole bunch of extra footage that we can use for short form materials as well. So it was a lot.
24 videos in just 2.5 days. How did you do it?
How did we do it, Ed? How did we do it? I think there's a lot that goes into it, and that's what we want to do in this video, is kind of break down the planning, so like the pre-production, the production, and then post-production, because there are a lot that goes into it. It's not just those 2.5 days that you need to kind of contend with. And we wanted to break that down in this video to give you an idea of what's involved in producing that volume of content. And also the benefits there with 24 videos, 8 long forms, is that we have, I think, nearly 2 months worth of content for this client, rolling out weekly content with a long form and 2 shorts a week.
Yeah, exactly. I reckon that's like the emphasis. Is like, obviously with YouTube, we want to get the weekly content, and kind of traditionally we focus on the long form content. I think the most we've ever done is 1 long form video and 5 shorts per week. So basically daily content. So 1 long form video per week plus 2 shorts. So still like decent volume. And then kind of unsurprisingly, the client also wants to use those shorts across other platforms. So obviously using them as Instagram Reels, for example.
So there'll be some repurposing, some tweaking of the post-production.
Yes, and the fact that Instagram has now introduced this
trial
hook
reels
testing, yeah, exactly, means more work for us. In the age of AI,
no rest
we should
for the
be
wicked.
doing less work.
There's no rest.
We're just doing more.
But maybe we could start off, because I think the most important thing here is to dive into, it was a lot of video content, but why? So maybe just touching a little bit on the strategy and then going into the planning, because you were responsible for a lot of the script preparation. It was a German language client, and my German's not great.
And I'm half German.
Officially, I've seen the papers. So maybe you could kind of kick off, I guess, step 1 in this kind of journey of like how we approached it.
We want to explain the division and responsibilities, the division of labor within Humble&Brag a little bit. I'm responsible for pretty much everything up until the point of production. I mean, we do a lot of it together. I'm managing that process from kind of onboarding the client, doing the research and the strategy, and like kick-off workshops, all those kinds of things. Determining which videos we're going to make, and then once that's done, we enter the scripting process. So that's then either us doing the scripting kind of internally with our scripters, or otherwise with people internally within the company. In this case, the script writers are within the company. So basically getting them up to speed with how to write a YouTube script.
I would then take on pretty much everything from just before the production to the post-production and distribution of the content. So that's kind of how it's split, I guess. Much more production and maybe more the strategy and kickoff.
Yeah, I see it as like pre-production and production and post-production on your side.
Yeah,
so
that's a better way to say it.
You have 2/3 of the work and I have 1/3, and that's the way it should be.
Okay, so let's kick off. We've just talked about having this huge content pipeline produced. Maybe just to touch on what you've mentioned there with the sort of the allocation of work. What was your kind of process there? Because you were doing a lot of the onboarding with the client initially and kind of ascertaining what they kind of wanted to do with YouTube for their business. Maybe just touch a little bit on the strategy, and then we can go into the kind of the planning that goes into this kind of video production.
As I explained in some other videos, like the whole process with onboarding a client is doing a strategy workshop, basically taking them from really broad questions about where they want to take the company to questions of the company's positioning, and then like filtering down to much more tangible, concrete questions about the kind of content that we should be producing. And by that time, we're looking at basically competitors, what works for creators kind of outside the niche, and also what's worked for the company on other organic channels primarily, or just other marketing channels, and kind of bringing that all together. Once we've done that, at the end of the strategy workshop, we've got a draft of the kind of things that they would be excited about making and what we think would work for them. And then I basically take that away and then just kind of brainstorm in the very traditional sense of trying to create a ton of ideas, which is then shared with them. They kind of quickly say, no, we don't like that, we don't like that, we don't like that, we do like this. And then we have a bit of a shortlist, and then go back to that and just kind of refine all the titles so that we have a list of titles that we could potentially produce and use as our kind of launch strategy. And once that's kind of signed off with the client, then basically it starts going into the script writing process.
We've got a pad of paper here as well that we want to jot stuff down. Should we do like step 1?
Exactly, yeah. So which colors would you like?
Let's start with the
yellow. You want to take all
the
colors of the sun, and I will take whatever remains.
So step 1, this is a really terrible piece of handwriting on my part, but step 1 is...
So strategy, basically, our research and strategy, but I guess we could just kind of put those together.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of, in terms of the turnaround and the length, what kind of time frame would you say you work to? Because I should point out this batch of content that we did for this client was not the first batch. So we'd already done a lot of the pre-planning, the onboarding, that kind of thing, several months before. What kind of time frame for this batch of content would you say was used?
I mean, like from start to finish, in reality, it's probably like 2 weeks from when you start the whole kind of research process. And then it's a lot of to and fro with the client themselves, getting their first feedback on the ideas. Typically like maybe 1-2 kind of face-to-face meetings to talk it through. I think the actual work could be done in kind of an hour to 3 hours, probably. 3 hours to a pretty good standard. What's important to note here, though, is that with the first launch, so when you're doing it completely fresh, then you're kind of relying on these data points that aren't kind of proprietary data points. It's not data that you're getting out of YouTube analytics. Typically, it's looking at competitors, as I mentioned before, looking at other marketing channels that are working, and looking at just what's working in general for creators on YouTube. But now, once you've launched all that content, we had like, what was it? I think we released 16 videos in the whole initial kind of launch period. About 7 or 8 of those performed pretty well. And then that particularly provides a ton of data, obviously kind of like what's working, what's not working. But for those videos that's working well, you can kind of go into all the suggested video data and get a lot of good ideas of what is probably going to work well if you create it in the next round of production. So we feel a lot more confident going into this round than going into that first round, just because you have great pointers as to what works already.
Yeah. And then I guess that's informed the content strategy with this batch of content.
Exactly.
So these videos maybe feel a bit more purposeful in that respect as well.
Yeah, just way more like with the first round. Then we took a lot of inspiration from the company's blog and magazine, which is great, but not as great as taking the inspiration from YouTube, which just ends up like when you use that as inspiration, the titles just become instantaneously like more clickable and more entertaining. Like you just get more excited about the whole concept. The great, like taking it from the blog's great because kind of like guarantees views. Like you just use the content, use the videos embedded within the blog, and that drives views through the blog and it improves the blog's performance. All of that happened. All of that's great. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like enough on the entertainment side of the spectrum. Yeah.
So total, I mean, again, this is so step 1 here. You've got the research and strategy around about 1 to 2 weeks. What came after that? I feel like I should know the answer.
Rest, sleep.
I mean, I guess you kind of then get the sign off, right? You get the sign off from the client, the green light, the go ahead, and then it starts moving into maybe more logistical elements as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say just to slow it down a little bit, then we have the long form titles, like prioritize the long form titles, and then I think the short forms come off the back of that. Yeah, using the long forms as inspiration. When you start seeing the scripts, you start to see different topics that could come from the long forms. So yeah, that would come next. So then we had the 16 topics for the shorts, and basically having that all within a doc before we start script writing.
Yeah,
and then step 2 would definitely be scripting.
Oh, the scripting, yeah. I jumped way ahead there. Yeah, so the scripting is something that's, I think, quite important to mention because depending on where you're at in terms of your team size or your team resourcing, we can offer, we have scripted for clients before, but in this instance, the client actually took on the scripting with some like guidance from our side. But that's quite important to mention because it is quite a significant amount of work. Even in the age of LLMs and AI tools, it's if you want to do it well, it has to be done a certain way with retention factors and such in mind as well. So yeah, that was a fair chunk. So step 2 was then scripting, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I'm falling behind with
That's okay.
the numbering here.
I did 1 in lowercase and 1 in uppercase.
Perfect.
So
step 2, scripting.
Step 2, scripting.
And what kind of proportion of the last couple of months would you say went on scripting? Quite a chunk, right? Or
yeah, so managing that process. So either we're doing the scripting in-house and maybe we're managing freelancers, or like I said, we're managing someone internally within their company, giving feedback on it and so on and so forth. I mean, once they're onboarded, then it moves a little bit more quicker or a little bit more quickly. Yeah. And then the feedback process, I mean, it's like on the 24 scripts. So it's quite a lot to feedback on. In the end, we did 8 of the short scripts internally because it was their first time. So we were basically showing them how we would do it so that they could kind of emulate that process and emulate the structure of the scripts. Yeah, then in typical fashion, we got kind of feedback from every member of every department from their company for the first like 2 shorts, and then it just kind of trailed off a little bit as it went further down. So we get the scripts back with feedback, and then the experts who then come in and present. So the presenters, basically the faces of the company, they read through and give their feedback, and that's kind of the final step before sign off. Yeah, and the idea is to get everything signed off at least a week before production, so that everyone has had the time to read through the final version and like really familiarize themselves with it. Because when we hand over to production, it definitely takes a lot more time if people aren't familiar with it. Yeah, it's just way more efficient if we've had that process to kind of read through in advance.
So scripting, ballpark, in terms of the commitment on both the client and our side?
For the volume of videos that we had to do, then we needed a month from start to finish to be comfortable with the delivery of this, basically. In reality, then it's kind of 3 weeks, I think, if you really wanted to. But like I said, you just want that period of time between scripting and production.
And again, I would imagine this is something that would be significantly different for like individual creators who are performing on YouTube, because they'll probably either just talk ad hoc to the camera or just script their own content or have a scriptwriter do it for them. But with this element, because it was also kind of in the healthcare realm, everything has to be kind of checked and scrutinized a little bit more than it would be for the average YouTube video, just because there's kind of a clinical aspect to it all.
Yeah, I think the other thing to note is unlike creators, I mean, I think the more professional creators do the same thing, but the batch productions are basically critical to us being able to operate this business model at all. So the idea is to obviously batch produce 2 to 3 months worth of content in one sitting over 2 to 3 days, as in this case. And obviously this process and the lead up to that is necessary in order to enable the batch productions.
Absolutely. Okay, so after scripting, what are we moving on to?
I think there's probably a bit of a process of briefing the talent, the presenters in the video. So as I mentioned, they're reading through the scripts, but there's a lot of questions that come up, and you're more knowledgeable about this, and I think you're more involved in this. It's just simple things like what to wear, how to prepare. Also a shot list, making the talent aware of when they're going to have lunch, when they're going to finish the day, when they're going to be able to take a train back home, all those logistical things. It's kind of always time consuming, and one of those things that you want to be as kind of rigorously planned and as replicable in terms of how you do it as even the scripting and the research and stuff.
I mean, I think that it's a relatively short period of time allocated to that, but it is important because often we're working with people that have never been on camera before. And I think that's always a consideration, just to put them at ease, like what the day will look like. Most people have a kind of apprehension about coming in and immediately being in front of camera and lights and, all the different audio equipment and then having to perform. So I think just easing people in, making sure that the day is also a positive experience for them. And as Ed mentioned, having that kind of shot list. So they're kind of like if you were organizing a workshop or facilitation session, people know when the natural break points are in the day and the kind of the ebb and flow of the energy. Usually people get a bit more fatigued towards the end of the day after doing loads of 2-camera video work. And I think that's only natural. So yeah, having a shot list, that's relatively quick to produce. And again, it is something that you can kind of templatize. And then just to touch on the other thing you mentioned, where you mentioned this B-roll element as well. Oftentimes you want to capture footage that is sort of supplementary to your video content. So you can plan and script for the main videos themselves, but you also want to have a think about what kind of footage you can capture while your client or your talent is in, or if you're on site with them, that will support those videos. So things like showing the product, getting footage of maybe it's like an app or a digital product, getting footage of people using that app and digital product, and getting the camera right in there so you can see all the different screens and such. I think that's something that we try and plan for as well. Sure. And again, once you've done it once, you don't really have to repeat it too often.
The Polaroid camera.
This is something that actually, as a sort of client-facing agency, I think we've really hit the nail on the head with. We went to one shoot recently where we just had a small Instax-style Polaroid camera, and we've done it a few times now, actually. But the clients love it because you get to kind of document the day in this kind of slightly fun, retro fashion. And at the end of the day, people get to take, pictures of their Polaroids with them and their teammates, and then take them home or upload them to Instagram stories or whatever.
Yeah, like you said, like the majority of people haven't really filmed.
Yeah.
Or certainly not professionally. And so it is a bit of an occasion for them. And so it's nice to obviously make it actually feel like an occasion.
Yeah.
So yeah, this kind of production management side. I mean, the other thing is before the second shoot with this client, they were like, okay, we liked the first shoot, but it's not quite on brand because it's not quite bright enough. It's not, it's a health brand. So you want to make it feel not like sterile, but at least clean.
I don't know what you're saying about our office here, but
and there are certain corners. No, but so we put something, like basically.
We just used, we can't say too much, right? But this backdrop here.
This kind of thing. Very YouTube-y, but obviously a lot of white everywhere, which was basically what we interpreted as clean. But yeah, like this is another thing that would go under this category of, I guess, production management, where we had to make sure that this was all ready. So like just in this case, kind of preparing this room and getting hammer and nails and putting everything up and doing a bit of proper work for once. So that all comes under the production management component, I guess.
So it's not insignificant, but again, it's much more condensed than, for example, the scripting period or the initial kickoff and the research. So maybe I would say like 2 or 3 days, maybe a bit more, 3 or 4 days for that.
Yeah, it depends basically, I think we always
underestimate.
Give ourselves like 2 to 3 days before the actual shoot to make sure all of this kind of stuff is in place. I think it can be done very quickly, typically, even if we have to do a bit of handiwork. And that could become, this time around, we were also shooting outside the studio as well.
Yes.
So we had to plan for that. We had to buy a lot of food from the supermarket because we featured a lot of different
There was a lot of food, but we were well fed for that week, or last week at least.
Yeah. We still have a lot of dairy products in the fridge. If anyone wants any quark, we have a lot of quark.
What is, it's like German natural yogurt?
I still don't know. I don't know. They have different cows that are a bit more congested.
The quark cow. Yeah. We've run out of space, so we're on step 3 already. And as you can see here from the time frame, you're looking at maybe a month and a half just to get to this point already. Again, you can make efficiencies and condense things down, but this is an example with that sort of volume of content, what we're expecting time commitment wise, and lead up to the actual production. So what would be next? Because we're gonna have to turn the page here as well, right?
Literally and metaphorically.
Yes.
To production, I think it's over to you.
Okay, so step 4, we're on to production. Maybe you can prompt me on this one because I'm...
I thought I could have a rest. Yeah. So we're on to production. So basically, production management, I guess the set is set up. And then I guess that just means the morning of the production. I typically arrive a little bit later than you. You arrive earlier than me. Why do you have to arrive earlier? What do you do?
Well, for example, with this client shoot, I actually did most of it, I would say the day before or the evening before. There's a lot of logistical, technical things that have to happen for a video to look like this, or multiple videos to look like this. You need to consider the space you're going to be filming in. You need to set it up. The set dressing is one element that can take several hours, but most of it is spent on the equipment setup. And we have quite a bit of equipment. And especially on this client shoot, we were filming with two main cameras. We were doing B-roll, as Ed mentioned. There was lighting. We're also filming not just one person talking to camera, but multiple people. So there's different audio options at play. So you really just want to get things set up so that when the client comes in the door, everything basically looks like it's ready to go, even if it's not fully ready to go. But that you can just start to get, kind of warmed up and get the client and the talent in front of the camera. But yeah, so for the actual production day, I would say I set up a lot of it the evening before, which is unusual for me. But normally I would come in several hours before the client is due to arrive to set up all the equipment, the tripods, the cameras, the lights, the audio, things like formatting the memory cards to make sure there's enough storage space, creating a file folder structure on like a hard drive, so you can easily drop files in and back them up, all that kind of stuff. And I would say that would probably, the production, it sounds like I'm going to say like a couple of hours, but the pre-production, not pre-production, but the pre-production production, I would say probably takes about, on average, between 2 and 4 hours, somewhere like that, just to get the kit set up and get the space looking good. So yeah.
Okay. What would you call this stage?
Pre-production. Pre-production.
Well, because
normally pre-production is the stuff that we've just mentioned up to this point. Everything before the production, but this is kind of like, I would just call it setup. Just call it the setup. Yeah, production setup.
Production setup. I like it.
It's been a long day. So production setup, and that would be in advance of the actual cameras rolling as well. And again, I would say maybe time-wise, like between 2 and 4 hours. And then maybe following on from that as well, we get into the actual production. I mean, what's your kind of experience? Because I guess you haven't been on too many shoots before Humble&Brag, right? Maybe the ones that you starred in, but what was your kind of experience been with the production that we run?
I have to think about it. No, I've been on a lot of productions because
That's you did the Babel stuff as well. Yeah, that's true.
I was kind of often on set then. Less so at Career Foundry. I think the key now is how little time it takes once the talent arrives to get into the first video production.
Yeah.
Like my experience of previous shoots was always like people arrive, they kind of have a cup of coffee, a bit of small talk, take quite a lot of time to get all the settings right on audio, video, all the rest of it. That's when you actually lose time. I think much more so than any other point in the shoot.
Yeah.
So I think we've got that down to kind of a fine art now. Especially because we have to shoot quite a lot of content within a fairly short space of time. The other thing I think is, or maybe the other thing particularly with this round of shoots as well, is kind of in our DNA to do the long forms when it comes to short forms. I saw someone else talking about this the other day. It's like, short forms is short, there's not much footage. Maybe it's a bit quicker on the edit, but the amount of pre-production and production setup is pretty extraordinary because you just have to think of all those layers of hooks. So you got the hook in the scripts, but then you also probably want a visual hook. You probably also want to have thought about the text hook, so the overlay, those three things happening basically in conjunction.
Yes.
And so you have to have planned all those things in advance, and particularly the visual hooks, or like just making it visually interesting with food from the supermarket in this case, just requires a lot of preparation. So you can't just like dive straight in like we did now, where we just kind of stand in front of microphones and off we go. You have to like, in this case, we were like piling up vegetables on the side of the, just out of shot. And that kind of stuff for what, like a 60, 90 second short. It's quite a lot of preparation.
And I think this is also something to mention because you'll have the scripting in place in the previous steps. But then you need to think about from the scripting and the topics that you're featuring in that short, how to make it, visually appealing. What's the first 3 seconds? What's the visual hook, as you mentioned? And if you're doing that in a constrained time period, and you have to reset the room or move the camera setup, so like we always try and be efficient with that. For example, in this shoot, we used this table, and most of the action happened around here. But yeah, we were quite lucky in that respect that we were able to do that planning beforehand. But it's not an insignificant amount of work as well to make that kind of a unique experience. Yeah. Although I think it went very smoothly.
I mean, it always does.
Yeah. And then in terms of the actual production, maybe something that would be interesting for viewers, I think, is the length of time you should allocate to filming a sort of typical educational talking head long form, because that was kind of the real meat of the production. I mean, that was quite a significant, I think we allocated a full day for at least 6 of those long form productions. And I think on average now we've got it down to about an hour and a half, maybe between an hour and a half's allocation for filming a long form. Yep. And a typical long form would be somewhere in the region of 10 to 15 minutes for us. That's kind of the average length that we see, but just making sure you have that time to kind of brief your talent. A lot of time, sometimes they haven't seen the scripts. If they're coming and they're not part of the content process, they might not have fully, processed the scripts. And I think we typically do like a run through in full on the teleprompter. So the talent can kind of warm up and get a sense of the vocabulary being used and the kind of topics that are featured. And then we'll hit record and then do it. And it's a lot smoother when you do it that way. It does take a little bit more time because you're basically going through a 10, 15 minute script in real time. But then when you actually come to record, there's usually less outtakes, less bloopers, less errors, and it makes it a bit more efficient. But yeah, I think we found about an hour and a half per long form. And then if you're capturing 8, that's, it's not an insignificant amount of time.
So, I mean, in this instance, we had an hour and a half for the first 2 videos.
Yeah.
And then in the second session, so after lunch, it went down to an hour. And that's basically just because at that point, you kind of into the flow of it.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, like we're pretty quick about getting everyone set up initially, but it still takes a bit of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit more time is allowed for those first long forms. And then we mentioned how many long forms and how many short forms we're doing. Maybe you just want to mention how that was split over the 2 days, because it's not like we're doing one long form and then one short form on the same topic or anything like that, or otherwise one long form and like just cutting excerpts from that long form. Obviously all these short forms are written specifically for the format. So yeah, how do you want to explain a little bit how we set that all up and how we manage that?
I think the best way to do it is, you've already touched on this kind of batch production methodology where you can batch a series of productions into a short period of time, maybe a day or two. We kind of do the same with the actual shoots on the day. So for the long forms, we batched all the long form content or the bulk of the long form content into one solid day. As I mentioned, it takes maybe about an hour to do a long form video. So that was 6 to 7 hours for the first 6 long forms on day 1. And then on day 2, we finished off in the morning. We spent about 2 or 3 hours on the remaining long forms. And then in the afternoon, we allocated about 2 to 3 hours per 8 shorts. So we captured, with one member of the client team who was the talent, we captured 8 shorts, and then we took a break and then captured another 2 or 3 hours worth of material for the other 8 shorts. So that was 16 shorts in total. And I think we overlapped a little bit into day 3, the morning of day 3. So I shouldn't say we did it all in the one afternoon, but we did overlap. I think we captured 2 or 3 shorts on the Friday morning as well. And we had that buffer time built in purposefully as well, because we knew we wanted to capture additional B-roll. We wanted to capture, maybe have some spillover time for the remaining shorts. So yeah, it was kind of split over 2 days, two and a bit days. And then having that remainder on Friday just relieves some of the pressure from your production.
You talked a lot about the logistical side of the production. What about the emotional toil of shooting 6 long form videos in one day?
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I finish a day like that, and I'm kind of conscious that, a lot of people out there have very hard jobs, and this is actually kind of a luxury, being able to film fun content with people. But I think there's just so much going on with like multiple cameras, the lights, the heat. It does kind of take its toll on you physically and mentally. And I think you just always have to remain sharp up until the end, especially in a client-facing project. Like right now, I've dropped pens, like a light's gone off, like it doesn't really matter too much. We can fix that in real time. But with a client production, you want it to go smoothly. And it does take a bit of a physical strain. So usually in the evening, I try and back up the footage to the hard drive, that kind of file folder structure that I mentioned. And then I just try and unwind, and I try and do something to take my mind off and just reset a bit. So you're kind of fresh the next morning. And I think the worst thing you can do in those scenarios is be fatigued to the point where maybe you forget to hit record and you film for an hour or something like that. And it's happened. I think it's happened to me a long time ago. It's not fun for anyone. But what about yourself? Because you were also directing a lot of the shoots because it was in German language. How did you feel towards the end of the day?
I think we have one of the hardest jobs in the world.
Yes.
One
of the hardest white collar jobs.
I mean, it's it's a cool setup. But coincidentally, I think I was reading something else that evening, trying to pay attention, and it was all about like the limits of attention span. And it was kind of like typical kind of half an hour to 90 minutes or something. Yeah. And on those days when you're kind of directing and managing the teleprompter, and it's also in German as well, which just requires like a little bit more conscious attention for me in order to make sure that everything is being kind of said and pronounced and delivered as well as possible. Then it's like it's basically paying attention from beginning to end. Yeah. And then also always operating on this kind of like client services role a little bit as well. So obviously, being kind of hospitable is the wrong word, but
we have to be polite to each other.
Not being hostile
less
to the clients.
Swearing as well. No, there's not much swearing. Okay, so just to kind of summarize the production days themselves, I've put down here between 2 and 3 days. Again, for that volume of content, if you're filming 1 video or 4 videos, you can probably do it in a day comfortably. But for that kind of scale, with the 24 videos that we've mentioned, I would say at least 2 to 3 days if you're efficient with the time.
I reckon we could do it in 2 days, but it would be risky.
And keep in mind, saying that, you probably could logistically, but you also have to think of the talent and the client side. So like these people are presenting, it's not their day job in this instance. And I think if you just fatigue them, I mean, it's also a luxury to be able to get someone that's not involved in content out of their normal role for 3 days. But it can be quite intense for the presenter or the talent. So you always want to factor that in as well.
I think also one of the most important points, just kind of strategically or ideologically, is that if you pride yourself on being able to shoot a lot of content in a short space of time, as we've kind of suggested we do simply in the title of this video, then you quickly lose sight of actually like making or innovating with the content itself. Stretching either experimenting with formats or stretching the concepts within those formats.
I think that's actually really important to mention, because you do, not that you get lazy with it, but I think it becomes almost so systematized, it kind of takes a little bit of the spark off and the edge off if you're okay, well, I've got a system for this, and you apply it, and it's like, oh, well, actually, maybe this doesn't fit this particular niche or this kind of area of operation. So I think being able to, I mean, for context for the viewer, like there was a period not so long ago that we were doing a client production every week for like 5 or 6 weeks or so. And not 5 days a week, but it was like, 2 or 3 days a week, every week and it really does. You start to notice that like there is a bit of a sort of fog that comes down, and you lose that kind of desire or the spark maybe to be as creative as you could be with kind of the problem solving element of the videos.
Yeah, I think it's also like easy to get into not like a rut, but just a routine of producing a certain kind of content. For us, and then it's magnified for the client as well, because we kind of assume there's this thing that we do. For example, like say we do this kind of content, and then the client sees that and they say, oh, they do that kind of content. And then the client starts doing that kind of content. And then the client thinks, oh, we make this kind of content for our company. And they see us as a kind of limiting factor because they kind of assume that we can't do anything else because that's what we've done up until now.
Yeah.
So a big part, especially in this phase on the other page, the research strategy is also saying like, this has worked, so we can continue doing this. But hey, let's do this other layer or this like other pillar of content and experiment with that, so that it doesn't become too samey and kind of maybe a bit boring for us, but like obviously more importantly, boring for the viewership.
Yeah. So
like consistency, super important, but don't be formulaic.
Yeah. And there was a time there where I was kind of worried that we were going to be pigeonholed as the ed tech guys. And we broke out of that, and now we're in
now we're the healthcare guys.
Healthcare, relationship advice.
Yeah, we're into longevity now.
Yeah. What else is there?
Nothing else. That's it. Things. Health and education. What more do you need?
And marketing, general marketing,
facilitation, cameras.
We're just listing different client areas now. Yeah, cameras. Yeah, that's a good one.
Paper, maybe.
Maybe paper.
Paper technology.
That's a curveball.
Paper
but
factory.
Yeah, maybe paper.
We might be doing a tour of a paper factory soon. That's 200 years old.
I did not know that. I mean, I knew about the client. Prospective client, but okay. So step 3, moving things along. No, not step 3. Step 6. We've done production and have allocated between 2 and 3 days roughly for that. If you want to be generous for that kind of scale content. And then what would come after that? Moving on to the post-production now, I believe.
Yes, that's also more in your domain, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like a little bit combined, but in this case, I mean, the video's getting kind of long now, but I'd mention. So we had the shot lists, we had the scripts. We also experimented a little bit.
Yep.
We shot a few extra shorts that were super kind of quick and snappy, simple formats that have proven pretty popular for other creators. As a bit of a test. We also had a Q&A format that we're going to cut up into shorts, kind of like a podcast or a mock podcast. So then for me in post-production, then I have to go through that content and just kind of review it, decide whether it's going to work, whether we're going to do anything with it, and then put a little brief together for the editor, because there's a bit of a kind of segue to something different. So yeah, that's my job. Otherwise, everything else is kind of a bit more on your plate.
I am a stickler for details. He says as he writes them post-production, and there's not enough space. Yeah, oh, it's fitting. Okay, there we go. It was a bit of a tight squeeze. I could have started that much further to the left. Post-production, one of the most time-consuming elements to doing video work generally is post-production. It takes as long as it takes, and if you want it done well, it takes even a little bit longer. I would estimate, just to give the viewer an idea, with the freelancers and the editors that we work with, typically, again, not in every instance, but typically a long-form video between 10 and 15 minutes would take somewhere in the region of 4 to 5 days, 5 being kind of the upper end, but maybe 4, more realistically 4, to get to a level where you can then feed back. So what would happen here is after you've collected all the assets, the visual assets, the video and the audio, we typically upload that to a cloud storage format. We use Dropbox in this instance. And then we would share that folder with our editor. And they're usually based remotely. There are some in Berlin, but mostly remotely. And then the editor would then download the footage pack and then start to work on the edit. And this is where it gets a bit interesting because we've kind of got rather cleverly, if I do say so myself, we kind of did produce this really nice brand pack that we can apply to different clients. So we can change things like the typeface and the colors and the title screens, but there's a fairly unified system there that the editor can then take and modify based on the client's brand guidelines, which works really well. And these assets are really nice as well. It means that we don't then have additional costs for the client by downloading templates or different assets and such. But yeah, typically the post-production per video would last about 4 days. And then to give a bit more context in this specific project with the 24 videos, we're actually planning to roll those out. So we're going to try and get 2 initially to the client, 2 long form videos, and then 8 shorts. So kind of like almost like a month's worth of content minus the 2 long forms in advance, so we can have a really nice sort of bit of buffer between the weekly releases and the post-production. So it means there's maybe a bit less stress on our side and a bit less stress for the editor if you can get ahead of the curve there with the post-production. And then, so ideally with this client, we're going to be supplying 1 long-form video a week and 2 shorts. And if you think about it, that then has to be processed on a weekly basis. So from maybe a couple of days after post-production, once all the footage is backed up and labeled appropriately, then the editor would take hold of that and start work. And then start rolling the assets out as they come in. And then maybe importantly, I would just add on to this as well. So you have the actual post-production process, but then you also have feedback rounds. And typically we offer every client a major feedback round and a minor feedback round. And just to touch on the differences there, major feedback would be like structural changes to the edit, like maybe this part doesn't fit anymore, let's remove this 2-minute chunk or alter this. Maybe a minor edit would be like a color change, kind of minor tweaks, sort of aesthetic tweaks to the video. What else could I say about post-production?
I mean, here I put 5 days. You said 4 to 5 days for the long form. I think like basically a week's turnaround, right? 5 days or 5 working days for a long form plus 1 to 2 shorts. I mean, that's like the assumption that we're working with at least. This time around. That's worked in the past.
I agree. And when I say this, I mean, I've worked in video for over 7 years now, and I've also done a lot of videography work, and also post-production work and editing. And it really does. It's one of those things that just takes as long as it takes, and people always, kind of want speed with it, but then also want it to be really good and also want it to be relatively cheaply priced. So you have this kind of like trifecta of like, you can have turnaround time, speed, and quality, or turnaround time, value, and quality, and you can have 2 but not 3, so pick wisely. And we try and offer, or in our pricing at least, that we cover off and offer value to the client in that respect. And we also know how long it takes, so we can kind of build that into way back in like steps 1 and 2, the kind of the client expectations of how they're going to receive this content and when, especially at batch.
I mean, I guess in the end, the experience for the client is that they kind of get those 3 things. I guess the pricing is a bit more subjective in a way, but like I always compare it to like how much you would have to pay in order to have an in-house team that's doing the same kind of thing as us. And then you'd probably need at least 3 people. And even in the age of AI, and assuming that would take some of the kind of burden off all these processes that we're talking about, currently, I still don't think you'd get away with anything less than 3 people really. And then in the future, still not really less than, I mean, assuming you need the kind of editor stroke decision maker, you probably need someone for final touches. You probably still need this strategist editor combination, basically. I don't think that's going to disappear too soon. And that already makes our pricing competitive. So I think that, And then the other thing is just making sure that everything is staggered. So this starts happening, and then before the last video is released, then we've done the next round of production comfortably. So there's just kind of seamless transitions to the next batch of content. And so it's just weekly content, basically. Endless content, the infinity.
And then maybe just to cover off the last couple of points, because I'm kind of conscious of the time here. I mean, maybe this is just a longer video. And if you're still watching at this point, thank you.
Subscribe.
But what would come after post-production typically? Is then, I guess, like, I mean, I would probably class like sign off and approvals as part of this process. But then you get to the kind of the upload and distribution stage, right? And just because I've talked for a lot in the last 2, maybe you want I can prompt you on that. But like, you've got the video, everyone's happy with it, our client is happy with it, we're happy with it, the editor is happy with it, we've got the file. Then what happens? Presuming it's a YouTube video or project.
I mean, everything should be kind of quite preordained. So, we've already decided on the title and the concept and all those kinds of things. We have the script. So a lot of it is just kind of bringing that back together. Generally, we start using AI a little bit more at this phase. So we have the scripts to create the YouTube description and stuff. Then we use a few tools like maybe ChatGPT, the script as well to identify the chaptering. Then make any edits that are necessary there. decide on any potential alternative titles, which I guess with YouTube title testing will be more of a thing as well. Also generate the 3 different thumbnails that we want to test. And then bring all of that together, obviously get it uploaded, all the backend stuff, various different checkboxes that I don't need to go into in the backend of YouTube. All of that, and I guess that probably takes like half an hour to an hour end to end, something like that. Maybe a little bit longer with the thumbnails, depending on the kind of complexity there. Yeah, and then get it all uploaded. Often then there's a little bit of to and fro with the client in order to get tracking links in place, for example, because we always want to be able to track the individual business impact, or rather the business impact to individual videos. So make sure that that's all in place, and then get it scheduled in or get it released, depending. And that's, I'd say, about it. Anything to add?
I think you've covered it. I think the main thing is then thumbnails. So we, as part of the offer, we also do thumbnails in-house for our clients, and we typically do up to 3 thumbnails per video in the initial test run, because we like to ABC test our thumbnails for our clients. And that typically would require maybe like half a day's work or so for the batch of 3 thumbnails. And then we can kind of monitor performance 1 to 2 hours. That would typically take an hour for the thumbnails. So we typically do like batches of 3 thumbnails for our clients. This is so easy
to make us more efficient.
Yeah, you just say
used these more often.
You say something takes a certain time and it has to. So typically we do like batches of thumbnails for our clients, and I would say that maybe takes a little bit longer than we put down, but like at the same time, if you're doing, we usually have kind of multiple clients running consecutively as well, so it kind of stacks up that a portion of my week, or at least my week, would be doing these uploads and the thumbnails. And then also I would say, maybe we can't factor in specifically here, but then revisiting a video, maybe...
I'd say that's step 8.
Step 8 is refinement or something?
It's like that whole process of analysis that then feeds back into the research for the next round.
Yeah.
But our analysis is also like the ongoing optimization. Maybe it's like optimization and analysis. And that's like... If you kind of split into 3, like I'd see it much more as a circle or a cycle rather than something kind of linear, this linear process. This ongoing optimization, like literally, there are a lot of ideas that can pop up once you go into the dashboards daily and check out basically what's working and look at the data.
I mean, in terms of time frame, I would maybe even just have ongoing.
Yeah, basically.
There's not like a set time, right?
Like it's much more efficient to do it on a daily basis as part of your routine, like brushing your teeth. It's just jumping into the dashboards for just a few minutes. And you get so familiar with it, it becomes very quick, and it's just something you can do with your morning coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
And that saves you having to kind of sit down and start from scratch once a month or whatever if you're going to kind of do this big review. It's all in your head already. So it's just much better. It's like you're much more familiar with everything. And you feel like, I always like talk about it as being part of like, you're within the matrix, you're plugged in. And so as soon as anything happens as the data point, something goes up, something goes down, you immediately have a good sense of why that's happening.
I would say this is ongoing, definitely. And then in terms of our clients, like I'll often in the evening or in the morning, I'll wake up and there'll be like a text from yourself or maybe a Slack message. It's like, oh, hey, have you seen this video picking up? I'm like,
respecting working hours.
Yeah, boundaries. But I think it's actually really cool because then you have this like excitement about the client performance or the video performance, and you can go back and equally if something's underperformed based on what you were excited about in advance of the release, you can tweak the title, you can tweak the thumbnail, you can really monitor the CTR. And maybe just to touch on this, I know this is getting a bit too tactical, but like seeing a video with like a high average view duration, high session time, that's got like a low CTR and is maybe underperforming in that respect, then by tweaking the thumbnail, you can see everything kind of get boosted by that. Because it's signaled to YouTube that it is a good video, but people just aren't clicking on it. But the people that are clicking on it, watch it for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Quick tactic for you. Okay. I mean, maybe just to wrap things up.
One more thing I'd have to say here, because this is super important with that we missed with upload and distribution and analysis to an extent, is making sure the client is also distributing the video on their other marketing channels.
Yes, and this is, to be fair, and not to single clients out especially, because it takes a bit of experience, but like this is something that I think we need to start offering, because we can kind of mention it in our kickoff calls and strategy calls. But if a client has like a massive mailing list, or maybe they're huge on Instagram or LinkedIn, or the founder's got a huge following, that really is a mechanism for success with YouTube as well. And like being able to leverage that as an audience that already exists to drive traffic, or especially if you're starting off from scratch on YouTube, to drive that initial kind of watch time to your channel is great. And not everyone does it. Not everyone can do it as well. But it's something I think we need to do more of.
for any like creators watching this, then you start with YouTube. Maybe you've got another channel, maybe you've got a big Instagram channel or whatever, and you're just starting with YouTube, or you're just starting with YouTube from scratch. Anyway, the creator scenario is often that you have this one channel that you're focusing on, and you kind of double down on that. But for a company, generally the companies that come to us are a bit established, so kind of from startups onwards, but like a fairly established startup, and they have a lot of channels already. And they want to see an impact from YouTube quickly, and an impact from YouTube means that it's driving like significant enough revenue for it to be on their balance sheet. And the only way that they can really do that reliably is to make sure that it's really rapidly integrated within their other marketing channels.
Yes.
Just to give that more accelerated start that a creator just wouldn't see, but doesn't kind of need because it's just one person.
Yeah, no, totally.
So yeah, that's a super, super important point that we talk about early on, how to get it into their marketing mix and how all the other channels can benefit from YouTube as well. And then they basically commit to that, and we keep them accountable for it.
As you did say once, I really like that turn of phrase, that we're a target on a balance sheet. And I really like that. Not for the longevity of our business, but for just as a turn of phrase, I thought it was really good. Cool. I mean, maybe just to wrap things up, because I realize that this is currently recording at like 55 minutes or so. Is there anything else to add? We've kind of done this, and I would maybe describe this as a cycle, as you say, where you go back into then feature batch content productions with all this analysis and information and data that you didn't have before. Is there anything else you'd like to add as to how we film 24 pieces of content in 3 days?
I think this is, only that this then connects to the research and strategy phase.
Yes. Yeah. So this would actually go back, and then maybe the editor can add in,
make it a bit dynamic,
an overlay here, something. Yes, it would go back, and then it would inform your future strategy and direction as well. But also, this is a crazy long form video. This is like, maybe if edited down, it'll be between 30 minutes and 40 minutes or something. Something different for us. We just wanted to open it up fresh off the back of this huge client production. And if you're interested in hearing how we work, hopefully this has been of value to you. And just also learning about what goes into YouTube production at scale for your company or business. So,
and what did you do while this was all over? Or when it was all over, rather?
What do you mean?
You'd finished the shoot Friday evening.
Yeah.
This was how I finished. Just got a Nintendo Switch, so a little bit of Mario Kart.
Mario Kart, nice. No, but seriously, I think, you need to switch off. So that's what we did at the end. But yeah, hopefully this has been of interest to you. There's a lot of moving parts that go into any YouTube production. And I think that's something we're always transparent about with people, the people that we work with and potentially work with. But if you've enjoyed the video, drop us a comment. Let us know which step or which part you're most interested in learning more about, and we can try and do a video on that in future with our fancy new setup with a YouTube play button in the background. So, yeah.
Where did you get that?
It's been in my flat for 2 years. Okay, but thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.